this morning, Building AI Edge for India. Well, India's AI adoption today remains over-indexed to the cloud, both in policy making and deployment models. This approach creates structural challenges as AI moves from pilots to scale. And the global shift is towards hybrid AI, where training remains centralized and inference happens on device or at the edge in real time. Edge AI outperforms cloud-only AI, where latency, cost, reliability, and privacy matter the most. The strategic deployment of Edge AI represents a transformational opportunity to accelerate India's technological growth while ensuring AI remains accessible across the nation's diverse socio-economic landscape. Moreover, Edge AI directly supports India's vision of Viksit Bharat 2047 and AI for all. Ladies and gentlemen, today's Power Breakfast is designed as a closed-door, insight-led dialogue, a space where leaders can exchange candid perspectives on what's working, what's not, and what it truly takes to build AI capability that delivers value at the edge. Our upcoming session is especially significant. It serves as the curtain raiser to the India AI Impact Summit 2026, a platform that will convene the country's most influential voices to define the next chapter of India's AI transformation. Our session is titled From Vision to Velocity, Scaling Edge AI for Real-World Impact, and it will explore what it truly takes to operationalize AI at the edge, where latency matters, security is critical, and performance is non-negotiable. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me in welcoming President and CEO, Qualcomm, Cristiano Amon, in conversation with CNBC-TV18's Managing Editor, Shereen Bhan. A round of applause for them.
We know that it is impossible to get a house full for breakfast. Cristiano Amon, you've pulled off what AI couldn't do, but thanks very much for joining us here this morning. It's great to have you join us at the India AI Impact Summit to talk all things AI. Before we talk AI, Cristiano, I want to understand from you, I read a quote of yours, something that you tell your team, that we're in the gladiator business. We have to reinvent ourselves. Speak to me about the reinvention that you see for Qualcomm in an AI era.
Well, first of all, very happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all. Thank you for coming. I think it's not only unique to AI, but I think in general, I think the tech sector has to always be reinventing, itself. Success on a particular technology in a particular era, it does not mean that you're going to be successful in the future. So you always have to move ahead of the trends. You have to invest in the technologies that are going to become relevant in the future. You have to make bets, and I think in our history in the company, that's what we always try to do.
Well, speaking of the bets that you are making, what are you most excited about at Qualcomm today? And as you look ahead, what's on the vision board in terms of green flags? What's on the vision board in terms of red flags?
I get this question a lot, and it's a very difficult question to answer because I'm excited about many things, and Qualcomm's doing many things. If I have to compare Qualcomm probably against some of the other semiconductor companies, I think what makes Qualcomm very unique is how broad I think our technology is. We're doing chips that go from below 2 milliwatts when you use an earbud that is now connected to an agent, all the way to 2,000 watts now as we go into the data center. So I think it's kind of a unique situation, and because of that, I'm excited about everything we're doing, from personal AI devices to phones, the future of AI phones and PCs and cars and industrial robotics, and of course the data center.
Well, of course, the data centers as well, which is where you now intend to focus your energies on. But, you're most excited about the edge, and you believe that whoever has a presence on the edge has the right to win. Explain why you believe that to be the case.
And by the way, I believe that it's going to be the case. It's 100% probability that's going to be the case. Look, here's the way we should be thinking about this, because there are many things that happen with AI. And let me start explaining this thinking about consumer. There are enterprise, there are industrial cases, but consumer. I think we all been familiar with personal computers. I think we've been using them, and I think especially here in India, something that is very near and dear to Qualcomm, given our heritage in mobile. I think the smartphone is the computer that fits into everybody's hand, and that's how in India the internet develops, how the cloud develops, everything around the smartphone. But now with AI, how we interact with those computers are changing. The computer now with AI understands us. It understands images that we see, understand what we say, what we write. And you see now how those computers are going to be modified by agents. And agents, they're going to be very useful if they are contextual aware. An agent that is going to be the agent I'm going to be using all the time may be very relevant to me. Your agent may be very relevant to you, and that's because there's unique data that happens in the edge, where the humans are, if I'm talking about consumer. The same applies for physical AI and industrial. So in the way to think about the evolution of AI, you see a lot of activity right now to create AI in the data center. But once that AI gets created, AI is going to be everywhere. It's going to be in the data center, it's going to be in the network, it's going to be in the devices. And whoever has the ability to have the whole end-to-end is going to be very well positioned. And that's the reason I say that the edge has a very, very important role when you think about who are going to be the winners in AI. If you go back in time to the internet,
yes.
In the beginning, people thought, who's going to be the winner for maps? Was it be MapQuest? No, ended up being Google Maps. Same thing, MySpace, Orkut versus Facebook and Instagram. There's a lot of things happening. We don't know who the winners are going to be right now. There's a lot of companies doing incredible things. But when this thing gets scale, you're going to have to make it very relevant for the humans, and it's going to be what is going to be in the data center, what's going to be in the network on the near edge, and what's going to be in the edge. And everything that happens connected to the person or the machine, you have a lot of processing that's happening there. I think the best way to prove this, when you think about an autonomous driving car. If you don't have to have an instant response, you can just run the autonomy on the cloud, but you cannot do that. And I think that's going to be no different than AI. So long answer, but that's why I think the edge is incredibly important about who the winners are going to be in the AI era.
I'll get back to who the winners are likely to be, but you talked about smartphones. And in the AI era that we're living in today, there are obituaries being written practically every day. Some sector is being written off. Smartphones likely to be written off, or you believe smartphones are here to stay?
Oh, smartphones are not going anywhere. Look, I always like to go back in time and see kind of what happened with technology. When we at Qualcomm create all the technology that enable you to have a computer that fits in the palm of your hand, broadband with 4G going to wireless devices, all the computing that enable you to have a high-level OS that fits in the palm of your hand. There were people that said, oh, laptops are going to be gone. Laptops are going to go away. They did not go away. You still have a laptop. I still have a laptop. Actually, the one I have is actually powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon X series.
Nicely done.
But the workload did change. The workload did change. Let's go back to the thing that I just said. Early days of social networks on Facebook, people use their laptops. Now, most people are using their phones. Commerce, e-commerce, you will use your laptop to buy things online. Not anymore. The majority of the world uses phones. The laptop is the exception. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to have those new classes of mobile devices. We see smart glasses. We see things that people wear, like jewelry becomes smart. Of course, wearables become smart because now you carry the agent with you all the time, and the agent see what you see in case of glasses, hear what you hear. And workloads are going to shift from phones to those new devices. So the phone's not going to go anywhere in the same way that the laptop didn't go anywhere, but it's going to change its usability. It's going to be doing a lot of processing for multiple devices. It's going to do phone things, but some workloads are going to go to like personal AI devices.
I thought you were going to be wearing your Meta glasses powered by Qualcomm.
I should have. I actually got it with me, but I should have.
But, let's talk a little bit about India. And I think the objective and the mission that the Indian government has stated very clearly is the idea of democratizing artificial intelligence in India. How do we make that happen? And what do you believe the road ahead needs to look like for that to truly be a reality?
Yeah. Look, I am incredibly optimistic about the opportunities here in India. And I think just to be consistent with everything I said, I think in this conversation, I go back to the past. If you just look when the smartphone, revolution started here in India, if you look at the amount of data that is consumed by a user, India is probably among some of the top in the world. And if you look at how fast the internet developed and how things leapfrog, into the future, especially when you think about digital payments and everything that is now happening with smartphones. When I look of AI, that's going to repeat itself in India, but it's going to be more powerful. The reason it's going to be more powerful is because AI has an incredible ability to empower people. The same way that connecting to the internet has fundamentally changed, I think, people access to information. I think AI is going to take that to the next level. How you get access to information, how you train yourself, how you get instant feedback about things, how you learn about things, how you do different things augmented by an agent, and how the entire economy of agents is going to get developed. I think India has an opportunity to be one of the fastest growing AI nations in the world.
The fastest growing AI nations in the world, because there are questions being asked about the fact that we're just about getting into the LLM race. We don't have the kind of compute capacity that other countries have at this point in time. We do have the talent. That's our biggest advantage. But you truly believe that AI is going to be the fastest AI nation?
Look, let's kind of zoom out, right, and see how this is really is going to play out. If you think about the phone today, right? The phone is the most cloud-connected device in the world. And, it's also the biggest development platform ever created. And if you look about how, you have services, there are some global services, some India services going to the cloud, and you have this thing through phones really democratize and reaching everything. The way I think about AI, and going back to the conversation about agents being very contextual aware, I think you're going to have different models going to be developed. There's going to be global models. They're going to be Indian models. They're going to be available. But then the real value is how quickly can you deploy this across industries? How many people can you reach with the technology? How many different things? And I think that's the opportunity for India.
Well, speaking of the opportunity in India, you're putting your money where your mouth is. You've just announced a special fund for India to invest in AI-specific companies. Take us through that.
Look, we have a long history here in India. We have a significant part, I think, of Qualcomm also here in India across multiple locations in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Noida. We'll continue to expand, of course, Delhi, Mumbai. We have been here into every transition of wireless, and Qualcomm has been as enabler. We are an enabler of companies. I think we provide technology, we provide chips for companies to develop their products, their applications. And we believe that we've seen how that has developed over time in India, the number of startups here. And because we believe so much in the potential, I think, of the country and how AI is going to be transformative, we are announcing, a new fund for a ventures team to invest in India startups and founders. They're really going to be building this future of AI alongside us. And I think we're excited. I think it's another step in our journey with India.
And it's not a small number, 150 million.
It's significant for startups, especially for companies that have a good idea, have a vision, and want the funds and support. And the other thing that goes beyond the funds is when we invest in some of those companies, we also help them with the Qualcomm ecosystem, access to our engineering capabilities, our development platforms, our chips. And I think when I was in the breakfast, I met CEO of companies that were actually started when a few years ago when we're just starting, and they're now becoming significant companies. I think that story is going to repeat itself with AI.
You know, since we're talking about an AI-driven future, one of the aspects that we need to consider is the cost. And, you know, how much can we actually see the cost of compute being brought down? In your experience, and given what you are doing at Qualcomm, to be able to address that problem, because that's going to be a critical aspect of being able to democratize AI, so to speak, what should we realistically expect?
Yes, and I think that is the reason the edge, it's going to become very, very interesting. Look, in how we think about computing software, I think at the end of the day, you know, I like to say that the software will find its most optimal computer, and that's where it's going to get scale. And I think we have seen this through other technology cycles. So what I believe is going to happen is as compute continue to increases, not only you have more and more capacity to run, you know, sophisticated and very large AI models on the cloud, but you'll be able to run that in your car, in your PC, in your phone, into your personal AI devices, in your wearables, in industrial, you know, appliances. And it's like just in a few quarters, we're going to demonstrate, you know, devices on the edge running multiple hundreds of billions of parameter model. And when that happens, the surface area of available computing for you to run models is going to be significantly larger. And what we have seen with technology, scale is going to drive a significant reduction of cost. Can you imagine, for example, if we didn't have, you know, the ability to scale? I think many of the technologies now we take for granted, you know, into the smartphone. The smartphone has integrated in itself every single piece of consumer electronics technology in a single device. And if you look at the price points of some of the smartphones right now, I cannot pick of a better example, and that's going to be true for AI. That's why the edge is exciting, and I think that's incredibly exciting, the opportunity here in India.
You gave us a glimpse of what we should expect from Qualcomm. How soon before we see some of these launches?
All of those things are happening right now. First of all, the transition of what we call, you know, the next mobile platform, which is those smart wearables that you can access an agent through our smart glasses, to, you know, a smart wearable, to jewelry that are smart and pendants, is happening right now. I believe things like smart glasses that they were running at about, from the early launches, the companies that pioneered this, you have volumes in the multiple tens of millions. That's going to go into hundreds of millions very, very soon. The other thing that is happening, you started to see agents being deployed in phones, agents being deployed in laptops this year. And the other things with physical AI, you start to see development of robots, which is, I know there's a lot of interest in physical AI, but like an autonomous driving car, it's a physical AI. And you just think about how that's going to look into a robot, and that's going to be very, very similar.
I'll get to physical AI in just a second, Christian, but, you know, I want to understand from you, when we talk about the build out, and we're seeing some, you know, jaw-dropping numbers coming in as far as the kind of infrastructure, AI infrastructure build out globally, 600 billion plus and counting. That's what the large tech companies are putting down towards that end. And the question is, one, return on investment, B, are we over-indexing on the infrastructure build out at this point in time? The other side of the story is, no, we're probably not doing enough given the kind of demand that is anticipated. The last time you and I spoke, we were talking about the supply chain constraints and the supply chain risks for the story, and we're back again now talking about memory chip shortages. So how do you look at what is playing out globally, both in terms of supply and demand?
Yes, I think there are two questions in there. Maybe I'll just go to the first one. It's very clear to us that whatever we believe AI is going to be, we're undercalling it. And I like to do this parallel when the year 2000 about the internet and the dot-com. Whatever people thought at that time how big the internet will be, they were definitely undercalling. The internet today is way bigger than it was at that time. And I think that's true for AI. It's probably underestimated in the long run. The obvious question that I don't have the answer to is the current pace of build-out of AI will continue? Will stay at this level? Will accelerate? Will slow down? I don't know. I think what we see, however, is everybody's playing to win. People are investing to win. Maybe everyone will be a winner. Maybe there'll be a few winners. But if anything, I will just use this moment to say AI is going to be created in a data center. It's going to be machines. And at the end of the story, this is going to be an end-to-end story. So I think the companies that are actually understanding that and investing in that direction are probably better positioned to win. The second part of the question is supply chain. It's, we have gone through that a couple of times. If anything, the positive answer to the question is, I think we have determined more than one time, starting with the pandemic, that semiconductors are important. I think people want chips, and I'm very happy to be actually a chip company. And in a particular time, the semiconductors become more relevant. But it is an issue. The supply chain has not been tracking, I think, the speed of deployment of AI. A lot of the energy is going to the data center, and I think memory, especially the build-out of memory for the data center, is causing a global shortage of DRAM. And we just about to starting to see that in phones and in consumer electronic devices and gaming consoles. And, like every one of those crises, it takes a couple quarters, maybe a little bit more, but it's going to bounce back.
It is going to bounce back. We will have to endure some of the near-term volatility, as you point out. Physical AI, and I think, here at the India AI Impact Summit, there's a lot of talk around physical AI and what it's potentially going to do as far as industrialization is concerned. Are we close to an inflection point? I mean, every day you pick up the newspapers or you watch the news on TV or you look at Twitter, and there are comments coming in from CEOs who are leading some of these companies on how they believe that, it's here and now. But how do you look at what we're likely to see on physical AI and whether we're close to an inflection point in terms of deployment?
I think the answer is there's yes, and it's starting to get scale. Look, the way I would describe this, we see it's easy for us to understand because that's how we communicate it, but you see a lot of information and a lot of activity with large language models. It's been trained on our language, and you see a bunch of different applications. But the same way that you train an AI model on language, you can train on sensor data, you can train on images, you can train on different inputs from different machines. It is the same exactly concept. The best way I can describe it, when you look at a car that has an assisted driving, even like we have built a stack that has been launched for our toothbrush, there's an AI processor over there. The training data is all the data from the road, the sensor from radars, the cameras, and you get trained on that data, and the car will drive by itself. And I think that it's already at scale, but now you're saying taking that to robots, industrial robots. You take that to machines, to motors, to computer vision in different verticals, from a retail store to a manufacturing to a warehousing, and that's getting scale. And that's particularly important for countries that are being very focused on building industrial capabilities. The new factories, that's incredibly relevant for India, are going to be factories powered by physical AI devices. And I think that's going to get scale starting like in this year of 2026.
This year itself, you believe that 2026 is going to be the big inflection point for physical AI adoption?
I think so. We're starting to see very interesting demand from industrial applications with AI at industries. And today I'll tell you, we're not limited by demand. We're limited by the time that it takes for the ecosystem to develop those solutions. That's why he gives me confidence we're really approaching an inflection point.
If this is in fact going to be the inflection point as you make it out to be, What should we then imagine the future for factories to look like when we talk about human co-workers and digital co-workers and agents working together, or humanoids and humans working together? You know, again, many tech CEOs are calling about a white-collar catastrophe. Many believe that jobs as we know will no longer exist in many sectors. What do you think is likely to happen as far as the workforce is concerned?
Look, I'll first tell you the factory answer, and then I'll give you the broader answer about potential impact of AI. But factory, the use cases are endless. Like it starts from, you know, how you actually have the help of robots. I think you have a lot of robots in manufacturing right now, but you know, a robot gets installed, it's fixed, it's associated with a particular production line. All of a sudden, you can have a robot that has wheels or legs, and it can move around to different things. That's going to change. The other thing that's going to change is how the worker can get assisted. Like, I know we talk about smart glasses for consumer. We just had this conversation. But if we put a smart glasses on a worker, like a safety glass that is smart, everything that the worker is doing, the glass is seeing, and can tell the worker, this is what you need to do next, or here you need you know, help with this information, or let me give you a template. Those things are going to happen at scale. The bigger question, it's difficult to, you know, predict the impact. I know it's a good area conversation. Our job's going to get replaced or not. I'm going to give you my own personal experience. And I know this is going to show my age, and that's going to be the problem of me telling you this. But
don't worry about that.
Yeah. But when I started my career, and I was just coming out of engineering school, some companies at the time, you know, I was kind of, you know, I came to school, I knew how to use computers and emails and all of those things, but some companies still have like fax machines, people doing inter-office memo. You have somebody who will use a typewriter, they write the memo, put it back on the fax. All of a sudden, everything changed. We have our smartphones, we have our emails, we have computers. The whole office changed. And jobs doesn't get all eliminated. Some jobs change, but I think AI is going to be like that. It's going to be an incredibly empowering tool. It's going to change how we do things, but still going to need the humans to do it, and the humans are going to be ones using the AI on the edge.
The humans are going to be the ones using AI on the edge, as you point out. But, you know, you talked about how it's an exciting time to be a chip company. But from the challenges that you addressed, as well as the kind of demand that we're likely to see, how does chip architecture change in this era, in this environment?
That's a great question. I wish you have time. I can talk about I can talk about this for 3 days straight.
We should stay on for lunch, right?
Yes.
Or dinner, perhaps.
But chips architecture are changing, and they're changing. It's a dramatic change, and it's not only unique to things that you know, we've been doing like for a long time, like phones. It's actually going to go all the way to the data center. It's going to change. The way you should think about AI is a different way for you to write software and run, I think, software. And as a result, you need a different computer machine. And there is no artificial limit about the amount of compute that you need in the devices. For example, today, you look at your smartphone, it performs with the same computing power that you have on a desktop PC. And it's going to require for you to run tens if not hundreds of billion parameters eventually on the phone. However, when you look of the architecture of a phone or of a PC, you cannot replace that with a big server, liquid cooled, with very expensive memory. You have to change the way you architecture the actual computer, the memory that goes along with that, and actually how you kind of disaggregate all the computer. We're investing in this. The architecture of computing in phones are going to change. There's going to be big changes coming for our future Snapdragon series in phones, in PCs, in cars. And that's one of the reasons we enter the data center, because we believe the data center is also going to have to change and creates opportunity for innovation.
So when can we expect some of these changes that you just gave us a preview into?
I believe devices with those capabilities are going to start, coming up in 2027. Not that far.
No, that's not far out at all. So as a CEO today, and I think, the global conversation is centered around geopolitics. It's focused around geo-economic confrontation and fragmentation. As a CEO today, what drives you to come into the office every morning and get your team rallied around the idea of trying to make AI work for everyone?
Well, we're a technology company, so we're very focused on technology. I think actually, especially for me, what drives me to come to work every day, and I'm very biased. I'm giving
in an autonomous vehicle, or
no?
Are you still driving yourself?
I'm still driving. But especially I'm going to tell from my perspective, and I'm very biased because I've been with this company for about 30 years, and I love Qualcomm. I come to work every day because of two reasons. I think the people that I work with and the opportunity to do new things with technology and technology that actually cause an impact. And I think the majority of people at Qualcomm does that. So geopolitics or not, I think that's our mission. We're going to continue to do that, and I think that's what we're excited about it.
And before I let you go, Cristiano, your message to your team here in India, given the fact that you believe that this is a big opportunity, and I know that you've got a significant presence here in India, is the heart of innovation going to move to India?
Look, the opportunity for innovation in India is tremendous, especially because there is an opportunity, like it was done in mobile, in AI, to go where AI is going, to leapfrog into the future. When I combine the talent that exists, the energy that exists, I think the plan from the Indian government and the ambition, I think, on development with technology, I think that's a recipe for innovation we're already seeing. Actually, that's one of the reasons we have this fund for startups in India, because we believe those startups are going to be very successful. And I think as a global company, I think we want to be part of it and be on this journey with India. And our India team is very busy. As our business continue to expand, I think the opportunities for us in India are increasing.
I'm going to go back to where we started, to the message to the team that, you're in the gladiator business and you're here to win. So let me end by asking you exactly that. Where do you believe you find yourself on the reinvention curve today, and what are the next milestones that you hope to achieve?
Look, we're very happy with the direction the company is going. I think most will look at Qualcomm and say, oh, that's a company that is focused on wireless and is a cellular technology company. And we're always going to be that. But not many will say in the past that Qualcomm will be a leading computing company or even a leading AI company in terms of AI processors. I think that's where we are right now from a technology. We have been building, a position and scale in those new industries. And I think when we look ahead, we see this change in semis created by AI is going to be very broad. It's going to touch every single device. And we think, given our global presence in phones, now in cars, entering to the PC and industrial, I think that's an incredible opportunity for the company.
Well, Cristiano, we wish you the very best of luck with each of those milestones, and we look forward to seeing much more of you here in India, since it is a strategic market for you. And we look forward to some of those launches that you spoke of, as well as the emerging trends that you've left our audience here with. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the global CEO of Qualcomm. Thank you very, very much for joining us here at the Qualcomm CNBC-TV18 Power Breakfast. Appreciate your time and look forward to seeing a lot more of you. The conversation is not done. We're going to continue our chat on what the AI future for India and, of course, for the world looks like. We will request you to take your seat, Cristiano. Thank you so much, and call our next set of guests here. Swati, handing it over to you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
From smartphones and PCs to wearables, automotive systems, and industrial devices, personal AI is transforming how individuals work, create, communicate, and make decisions. But as AI becomes more personal, the questions become sharper. How do we balance intelligence with privacy? How do we design AI that is intuitive, secure, and responsible? And how do we ensure that on-device AI delivers tangible, real-world value, not just novelty? Our next session is titled The Rise of Personal AI, On-Device Intelligence, Real-World Impact. And it will try and explore how personal AI is moving from concept to capability and what it means for India's consumers, creators, and enterprises alike. And well, without further ado, I would like to invite our esteemed speakers for this session. Dr. Durga Malladi, EVP and GM, Technology Planning, Edge Solutions and Data Center, Qualcomm Technologies. A round of applause for him, please. Amit Chaudhary, co-founder, Lenskart.com. And Dr. Pratyush Kumar, co-founder, Sarvam AI. And to moderate this session, may I please invite back Shereen Bhan, Managing Editor, CNBC-TV18.
Pratyush, in just a second, they've got their own launch happening today. So there's a lot of back and forth with that. So he'll join us in just a short while from now. Just to build on the conversation and where we left off with Cristiano and Durga, let me start by asking you, let's talk about the specific in the India context and what you're seeing happen at this point in time, but more importantly, what you believe will be the opportunities, but the challenges that we're now going to have to contend with.
First of all, thanks for having me here. And I did grow up in Delhi, and so when I heard your first remark, getting everyone here
was
for
I not
breakfast,
right?
it is quite something, and so that was quite. It's good to be here. First of all, the amount of energy is absolutely staggering. AI is a pretty big national narrative across the globe, and as Qualcomm, as we work with different regions, one of the things that I've noticed is that every region has their own aspirations, their own unique demands as to exactly what is it that drives AI adoption and the utility of AI across a large number of ecosystems and industries. From Qualcomm, we have a pretty large presence over here, so we have a pretty good handle on the pulse of exactly where the AI narrative is emerging. The very first thing that I would argue is that increasingly there is an emphasis on larger number of language models that go way beyond some of the languages that we see. So English is, of course, English and Chinese is something that we see. But there's a lot of new language models that are coming up. That's a pretty good, interesting point. We are not a model creator ourselves. We have a unique vantage point in the industry to be able to absorb and ingest models from everywhere in the world. So one of the things that we are definitely doing is to make sure that every one of these language models that are emerging in India are baked into our platforms. And specifically looking at the future of how the device AI is coming up, we believe it's absolutely critical because that would be the best way to use that. It's often used these days, but I'd like to reuse it once again, is what is called as the democratization of AI. Right. Literally everyone who has a doorbell, a smartphone, a PC, an earbud, rings, wearables, should be able to converse with those devices using the language of their choice, which is the natural user interface to devices. So this is one of the prime objectives that we have, ingesting those models.
And hopefully once Pratyush comes in, we'll get to chat a little bit more about that. But Amit, let's talk about what you're doing at Lenskart. And I know you're looking at the wearable space as an AI-driven future for the company as well. But to pick up on Durga's point, you know, there is the narrative and then there's the reality. Where are we on both narrative and reality? What is the deployment gap currently that we're talking about?
So first of all, thank you for having me here. Very, very interesting insights. At Lenskart, we have always believed that we have to build things for our customers. And while connecting the dots backward, we have, you know, like for an example, eyewear was a taboo 15 years back.
Yes, you destigmatized it and made it cool.
We made it cool, and we made sure that we bring fashion to this. It is just not a medical device. It's something which fashion can change it. So even when we see this smart glasses thing, we want to bring it where people use it. We don't want to just do it because everybody is just trying to bring it, because we hardly see people using it. So we have to start using it. Data is a very, very important factor. When we are talking about India, the problems are very different. It is just not, you know, taking photos and videos. It is like, how do you make it in a day-to-day thing, like payments? Like nobody's carrying wallets anymore in India. Everybody's using QR code-based payment, Paytm and Google Pay. So how do you integrate all this into your ecosystem where it is easier? Navigation is a big problem, right? People are mostly on their bikes. So how do you make navigation easier? So all of this, when you think about the present user applications and then start use it with the variables, then it makes sense. Like for an example, we talk about screen time, right? Screen time is just not on the phone, but all the screens we are using. And can your glasses help you actually achieve it? With a Whoop band, my sleep has increased by 1.5 hours, right? So which means that when there is data and you're planning to use data to make your life and health better, there are enough use cases which will be around all this variables which will come into future.
You're not getting Whoop anxiety?
No, not really. In fact, it is making me much better. I know, when to sleep, when to do exercise. So all of that is really helping.
But, to your point about the fact that you need to have, challenges that you address in the Indian context. Now, take us through where you are on your own wearable journey and how soon we can actually expect you to be able to crack some of those issues.
So very soon we are on the user testing mode. So we are not testing just in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. We are going to the tier 2 and tier 3 of India. Like we have a user testing going on in Visakhapatnam today. So we are going to users and just checking. So just integrating a LLM with a language might not be useful because they won't use it. Like how do you go to the local population and try to understand, how they are using it? There could be a very different use case which will come out when we are traveling across India and trying to build it. So our aim is that we want people to use it. We just don't want to get a trend where people are coming and buying. See, we have an advantage because we have been a bespoke product. We have been putting prescription glasses, building the glasses for different face shapes, sizes, color all of this is very, very important so that somebody wears it. Like if you're just making everybody like putting the same thing on every face, it's not something you want to do, right? You want something different on your face. It is something which is your identity. It is a real estate sitting on your face.
Yeah.
So how do you bring fashion to that, and how do you link all of this to make sure that you're using it?
Yeah.
Right?
No,
It's
your
just
shareholders will most certainly want people to be using them and not just doing them because it's the cool thing to do. But Durga, that's the point that I want to address. The deployment gap at this point in time, and specifically in the Indian context. One, of course, is what we're seeing in terms of trends, what we're seeing in terms of narrative. But how do you see the deployment gap and ways of being able to bridge that?
So there's a few points that I'd like to address as a part of this, and maybe there's a little bit of a history lesson over here as well. So if you think about the way the user interface to machines around us has evolved over time, not that I was there in all the decades, by the way, but I'm just making a point over here. The 60s and the 70s was really spent with everyone looking at mainframes and a command line interface. You would just type in something, there's a big green screen in front of you, and then you type that in. In the 80s, that changed with the advent of a personal computer and the usage of a mouse and a graphical display. That was a very first introduction. That's when I got my first introduction back then. And then around the late 2000s was the first time we introduced touch. And that was a very smartphone-centric concept. You see that now in tablets and everything else. But that was a new user interface that came in. So it's been like every 20 years or so, there's been an inflection point in terms of a change in the user interface, and we are exactly at that moment at this point in time. So that would be my starting point for the next thing. But what do we really mean by that? Does it mean that tomorrow in any of our smartphones, we all have our clutter of apps? I mean, I'm usually annoyed by it. There's like 40 or 50 of them. Half the time I'm searching for them. What I would like is to have, in fact, I don't even want to touch my phone, just have it there and talk to it more often as opposed to using touch. Voice is the most natural user interface. But the way to do that usually entails, and everyone has heard of AI agents. But we do believe, from Qualcomm's perspective, that agents are going to be the natural interface, the first stop between a human and whatever device that they are using. That agent then has the job of figuring out exactly what is it that you're saying, what is the use case that you're looking for, probably go into a rich bouquet of language models that exist. They are literally in the backdrop. They have a job to do, but that's not the be-all, end-all of everything. After that, figure out what is very personal about you. And that means devices have some sort of a personal knowledge graph, a context as to, if I just say, you know what, get me a hotel reservation or a restaurant reservation, but not something that have been there in the last 6 months, that is not something a language model can address. You need to have that personalization and some additional context that comes with that. And finally, go into the apps which are somewhere in the background and go from there. Now, in a category of devices like smartphones, where there's a very rich ecosystem already, the change is going to be a little more gradual. It's not like overnight in which you go there. On the other hand, we are truly excited about things like glasses, where there is no touch. In fact, voice is the natural UI. And you might ask a lot of questions which are kind of, what am I looking at? And the answer is to that will not come in unless you have the right kind of tech inside these glasses. You have cameras, you have local context, your position, what is it that you're looking for, which language you're speaking in, and that's the job of the agent. So from our perspective, I think to transition users from where they are today to adoption of these kinds of devices, agentic AI is going to be key in all the devices, whether it's wearables or glasses. These are the 2 points that we are actually looking at quite extensively.
And where are we on that transition today?
So as of today, we power the, you've heard of the Meta Ray-Ban glasses.
Yes.
I have mine. I use that very extensively. I wish the battery life was a little better, but we'll get there in the second generation. But it's a place where, you can take pictures. You actually do ask questions like, what am I looking at? Just for fun, take voice calls and so on. It's not a bad starting point at all, but there is something more subtle about it. When people walk into a store, it is seen as humans, we've already made our choices in terms of, these devices are actually, people are fashion conscious. You don't buy a geeky device. You buy a device which is sleek, sophisticated, and happens to be something that I'm going to wear and not look like, well, I'm a tech guy who's wearing this, right? And that's a place where, in fact, it's a Ray-Ban glass first, and then it just happens to have a lot of technology behind the scenes. It's the same thing for a watch. It's the same thing for a ring. And that, I think, is the next step for us, to actually make it something that is so attractive to use that, it should be obvious at that point in time. There is a job for us as Qualcomm to do in terms of the silicon and the software. You have a job to do in terms of building the complete ecosystem around it and building use cases on top of it. That's the way we see it.
Yeah, and it is also a marketing problem and a marketing challenge, as you point out, and that's what you're going to have to crack as well. So, talk me through the kind of bandwidth and time and investments that you're making to ensure that this is a reality. Because, wearables have been around, glasses have been around for a few years now, but we haven't really seen that takeoff. Why do you feel confident of the takeoff at this point?
Firstly, as I mentioned, use cases which people use it on a daily basis will get that deployment easier, right? We have put in a team of 150 people who are building the firmware, software, to make sure that it is easier for people to use it. It's technically very difficult. Like for an example, even the sort of education, like we were doing a use case in our office where we were asking that how can I use my iPhone to shoot a better video, right? So the camera is looking at the phone, and from the phone we are taking a photograph so it is coaching on a real time. So these are like like we were also doing a cooking demonstration. It's like, okay, so look at this, I'm cooking right now, and tell me where I'm going wrong, right? Or help me make this curry. So all of this will become part of the life in some particular way. And I agree that batteries and the form factor, the fashion, all of this will evolve. It is something like, AirPods was launched, everybody was saying that, why AirPods, they are not linked, they are not attached, but now everybody has a AirPod for something or the other, which everybody is using it on a day-to-day basis. So same, I think, will happen for glasses. It is also a device to collect most of the data which you're having in a day-to-day life, because you're not only seeing things, you're also listening things, and all of it is getting captured. So the persona of a user is getting built, right? And then, of course, the agents will come into picture, and how can we make it more smarter agents is something we'll see in the next couple of years.
Not just wearables, but one of the pivots that Qualcomm has made on the automotive side specifically has become a big revenue driver for the company as well. What are some of the lessons and learnings from that side of the business as we look at the future and this idea of democratization and reindustrialization using AI and so on and so forth?
That's an excellent question. By the way, it's been a long and fruitful journey for us, and we are still in the midst of that. But I'm going to state, like, from an automotive perspective, where exactly does AI play a role? And usually people think in terms of autonomous driving. That's only one part of it. Actually, there's two different things over there. The first is, once again, going back to the UI, the interface between the driver and what is in front of you. And it used to be called infotainment, but it's not infotainment anymore. We just call it a digital cockpit. It's a place where you're naturally conversing all the time and things happen. There is a glass screen. There's a screen in front of you which does everything that you really need to know without any knobs and so on. That part is fully based upon our AI solutions, and which means that you have large number of models which are baked in. There's a lot of combination of visual plus it's all multimodal models. So it's like camera, there's radar coming in, there's LiDAR, depending upon what kind of a car you are in. But it's a place where you're really transforming the interface between the driver and the vehicle. The second part is autonomous driving. And by the way, autonomous driving doesn't necessarily mean that you go all the way to level 5. The second part of the journey is there is a stack that is built up that gets us to the level 2 and level 3. And at that point in time, you rely a lot more on autonomy than upon the driver yourself and go from there onward. So we have these two equations. And that's where Qualcomm, we've spent a lot of time on both the digital cockpit and our ADAS solutions with our partners in the ecosystem and doing very well in that space. The lesson learned over there is we talked about wearables and we talked about UI. This is another place where, once again, humans have an ability to interact with machines, and perhaps for the first time, it's not historically, humans have had to learn the way of the machines to be able to interact with them. As every device around us gets more and more complicated, more and more complex, you would want your mom, your dad, anyone to be able to use it in a simplistic way. And for the first time, therefore, it's these devices that are learning the language of humans as opposed to human learning the language of the machines. It's a very big transition over there. So AI, therefore, is emerging, if not already, as the UI for all of us.
Well, let me also welcome Pratyush. We've been waiting for you. Pratyush, thanks very much. We're going to pull out a chair and get you to join us here. If we can have a chair. Yes, right here. Well, welcome, and should I say congratulations? Has the launch now officially happened, not yet happened? Or, give us what's the latest now on that?
In 2 hours.
In 2 hours, okay. In 2 hours, India will have its first sovereign model. So let's start there, Pratyush. And we should have a round of applause for what they've been able to do. You said we are in the race, and I think a lot of questions were being asked on whether India is going to be out of the race. You believe that India is in the race, and you are going to lead that race for India with the launch of your model. First, take us through that, and what has it been like putting your model together?
No, it's surprising, right? For a country of our scale, of our importance, people ask questions like, they said India shouldn't, India must, etc. But I think what we are trying to show is India can.
Yes.
Right? I think that is what we are trying to answer. That this is so important to technology that while we should be very, very active users of the technology, we should also have some bets at the foundational layers and build it, right? Because we are in a post-AI world. It's not like we are going to go back to the previous time. So just because 5 people build steam engines, other people won't build it, that isn't a good argument. But I think the reason why people doubt it is because it takes quite a bit of research, quite a bit of talent, quite a bit of compute to make that happen.
And capital.
Of course, compute comes by paying money, and yes, capital is going to be very important. In fact, even the ability to run that compute in the country reliably, all of that matters. It took a little bit of time, right? But I think the fact that we can and the fact that we can now scale it up. Now, the proof of concept of deep tech in AI is there. Now it's the proof of scale that we have to walk towards.
As we transition from the proof of concept to the proof of scale, I want to come back again to the point that we were discussing with Durga and Amit, that you've got this model. It is going to be launched in the next 2 hours. The question, though, is how are you going to be different? What are the problems that you're going to address that the others are not going to want to focus on? They can address them. They may not necessarily want to focus on them. What makes you distinct? What makes you special?
Firstly, we've been dropping models for the last 2 weeks. There's a bit of a frenzy on Twitter.
Yes.
Right? It's an interesting experience.
14 at last count.
Yes, we are on day 13 today, so there's something tomorrow as well. But the point is this. So we have been releasing models already, which do very well on Indian languages. We are far ahead of other models in terms of the nuances that language brings in, and India is, of course, a hard benchmark in terms of AI for languages. But the other thing is, we also want to be super competitive on other tasks, like, for example, math and programming and calling tools, etc. So we want to build for all of that, but Indian language is a specific focus. The other focus is to be efficient, right? We want these models. In fact, the title at the Impact Summit is Sarvajana Hitaya, Sarvajana Sukhaya, that is welfare for all and happiness for all.
Yeah.
I think if you want to do this at population scale, which is the inflection point that India can contribute to the world, you need this to be efficient, right? And that's the other thing. We are focusing on small models. How can they be efficient at the task they are doing? Building models for different use cases. Imagine, in fact, we showed this to the Prime Minister, someone in a feature phone asking whatever it is that they are thinking about, and the cloud is responding back to them, maybe doing some web search, etc. I just heard the speaker say about AI being the new UI. That means that on any device, you can access it, right? So who in the West thinks about a feature phone with voice, somebody asking questions, right?
Yeah.
This is a uniquely Indian problem. Still hundreds of millions of feature phones in the country, by the way, right? So those are the things that we are focused on. Indian language, building models that are globally competitive, and making them efficient.
You know, Durga, let's address this issue, because I think in the quest for democratization, this is going to be one of the crucial challenges. Efficiency, as well as ensuring that you bring the costs down so that this can be affordable and we can see deployment at population scale. You know, where are we on that, and the role that you believe Qualcomm and companies like yours can play in making that a reality?
Actually, we are quite far along in that one, I would argue. In premium tier smartphones, the larger language models, about 7 to 8 billion parameter models, started emerging in the 2023 timeframe. So it's been about 3 years. Historically, what we have done is percolate a lot of the lessons actually down all through the tiers into the feature phones, as they're called, or the mass tier. By the way, we have been working very closely with Sarvam as well, ingesting some of the smaller models directly onto devices, so that, once again, as Qualcomm, we are not a model creator. We ingest models from everywhere, and that's one of the things that we are doing. But there is a point that's actually being made. It's probably not as obvious. If you think about the ChatGPT moment back in November 30th of 2022, when it first emerged, that was a very massive 175 billion parameter model. Fast forward to where we are today, some of the really small models, like I'm talking of like maybe 1/10 or 1/20th of the models, they outperform the capabilities of that model over there. So technology has come a long way since then. So we are ingesting and optimizing these models, running locally on devices fast and furious from our perspective. And that is something that, you know, we have a job to do in the ecosystem, but right after that, there is then the use cases. Like, say that you do have this model, then what? Someone has to build a use case on top of that. What is it that you're going to do using this model on a smartphone? That goes a little beyond us, and that's where we rely upon a lot of our partners to make sure that it happens.
Yeah, and to go back to that point that was being made there by Durga, you know, the world saw its ChatGPT moment. The question now is, when will India see its Sarvam moment, and what will that Sarvam moment truly mean for India? What could it mean potentially for India?
I think ChatGPT was an interesting moment when we realized that these models are good enough to feel very humanized, right? That was the experience, right? I think the first thing we want to achieve, as I said, is to be able to say that in India, we can build grounds up. This is not a model built on somebody else's model. This is a ground up model built, trained in India with no data set dependencies on anybody. And we say that we can do that with capital expenditure significantly lesser than what has happened globally, right?
What has been the CapEx spend?
I mean, I don't want to talk specific numbers here, but
ballpark.
But I think at least 2 orders of smaller magnitude, right, than what has happened. Because frankly speaking, this is post facto, right? We know how these things are built. We understand them much better now. But the point is, we cannot afford trillions of dollars going into building these things. They need to be efficient. And then we need to focus on the use cases. I think that I really like the point about we need to make this work for the diversity that India provides, right? So Sarvam, by the way, there is intent in the name, right? In Sanskrit, it means everyone. And the long tail of problems to be solved for everyone is our challenge, right? We are not saying, I want to solve the hardest math Olympiad problem with my model, which we are also doing. There's a there's a smaller team that does that, right? But our goal is, our grand challenge is access to intelligence, or the per capita consumption of intelligence in the country needs to be sustainably high, right? And how do we do that? Unless we do that, there is the divide that will be created is going to be even larger.
So, talking about, and I like the way that you framed it, the per capita intelligence. And you will need all stakeholders to come on board to ensure that we actually move up that curve. Again, what is the ask that you have from the ecosystem? What roles do you believe different stakeholders can play to ensure that that is something that we move towards?
Certainly, I think firstly we need to provide the proof point. I think Sarvam's responsibility is to provide the proof point that we can do it. Then, of course, one of the things we need to do is we need to have infrastructure in the country at scale, right? The access to accelerated compute per individual in India is much less. We talk about doctors per individual, teachers per individual. This is something to think about. Accelerated compute per individual. We are like 2, maybe 3 orders less than the world, right? And that needs to go up, right? Because the value loops of AI, they compound where the compute is, right? And it's such a fast compounding cycle that we need to do that in the country, right? So for example, Qualcomm putting chips to run these models efficiently at scale becomes an important thing, right? And the third thing I would say is we need to provide more playgrounds for innovation, right? See, innovation, it's a little bit of a luxury good, right? So you put in more money, you say, I can go build it, but then you need to be able to have people who have the foresight to say that sovereignty matters much more in the long arc of evolution, right? Imagine Aadhaar being built by a foreign company. We wouldn't think of that. Or nuclear energy being built by somebody else who you have imported, right? Today we are importing intelligence, exporting tokens, leaving us with no leverage, right? We need to be able to think about the long arc and find who are those guys who can understand the importance of this and therefore provide a playground for that innovation by adopting technology and scaling it up.
And that's an important point that you make. And Durga, I want you to sort of chime in on the issue of sovereignty as Pratyush framed that, because this is going to be increasingly important, and we're seeing this play out world over as policymakers, regulators, and corporations grapple with this issue.
Yeah. To be honest, it's one of those places where I think the ambitions are pretty strong coming in from multiple countries in terms of what can be done. I think there's a lot of uniqueness associated with both the culture and languages is one of those things where I remember the first time we had a discussion with the government of Spain, and they were like, no, language is a property of the country, of the region, and it is something we're going to open up our national archives to be able to train the new models which actually didn't exist before. That's like one part of it. But I think I'm a true believer, and this is just probably because of my bias towards California and Bay Area, but I'm a true believer in startups coming in with unique and differentiated ideas, which, it has to be something that comes from the left field. It is not, innovation goes and growths and spurts in such a way that it's nothing linear about it. You have to be completely shocked by something that happens. And it is those things that you have to just believe in the ecosystem. There's no fundamental way of doing it, but make sure that the policies are there to nurture that sort of an ecosystem so that nobody feels stifled by unnecessary rules and regulations around you. And that's probably the important thing that most policymakers can make, and that's what they have understood so far. And so really glad to actually see that coming along.
Amit, let me get closing comments from you. So what does an AI-led future for Lenskart look like? What are you going to prioritize now over the next few years?
First of all, internalize every department, every area to use AI as much as possible to make sure that you're efficient. The knowledge has been democratized to a level where innovation can happen not only at the top level of the company, but at every smallest department, even at like our store managers are also using AI more and more to make sure that they serve consumers better. So how do you actually internalize everybody to do this and understand the consumer more and more so that you're developing products for them much better? So that is what we are at least trying to do at Lenskart.
That is what you're trying to do at Lenskart. Pratyush, so 2 hours to go for the big launch, but leave all of us here with what it's taken to get to this point. The hurdles that you've had to surpass, the sleepless nights, perhaps. I would imagine that there have been many. What has it taken for Sarvam to get to this point?
See, all 0 to 1 journeys are hard, as all entrepreneurs would know, right? So you tend to meet challenges at every corner, right? That's how it goes. training these models requires a huge amount of data. Just to give you a sense, we are talking about maybe hundreds of crores of books worth of data, right? So being able to build engineering systems that scale to that level, that work efficiently at that level. Of course, in India, the compute infrastructure is also very new, right? It's just coming up. There are many challenges with respect to running that reliably. So the team has, it's a team of about...
A very small team.
Yeah, it's about 45, 50 folks who sort of like really pulled a lot of weight to get here. There's a lot, by the way, I just want to clear, there's a lot more to do afterwards, right? We're just getting started. But I think we just wanted to create that with this amount of capital efficiency, we can actually build world-class models in India and kickstart this journey. I think this is just a start of something very long.
It's just the start of something wrong. Is there an end point in sight?
No, we are in post-AI world, right? So I don't think we are ever going back, right? So.
Not going back. Well, we wish you the very best of luck with the big launch and with all the milestones that you hope to achieve. Durga and Amit, many thanks for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our three speakers here this morning. And thank you for giving us an insight into what we should be focused on, and more importantly, what India should aspire to and the ambition that we must have for an AI-driven future. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us here this morning. Truly appreciate your time. It's been wonderful having you join us here for this Power Breakfast. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pratyush. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in late. No worries at all. I can imagine what it's like.
Qualcomm presents CNBC-TV18 Power Breakfast with CEOs. Building Edge AI for India.